to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Tuesday, the 30th of July, 2024. This is program number 1221 of the Lunchroom. And I'm your host, Calix George Jr. In addition to Radio 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. We're streaming there live, and all our previous shows are also available for download. And as well, on Facebook, we're streaming there. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. And if you would like to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. You can also WhatsApp us at 724-0008. Again, that number on WhatsApp, 724-0008. Some birthday greetings for today. First going out to Mr. Raymond Volney. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we're wishing you a wonderful birthday celebration. And of course, health, wealth, and happiness to you. And as well to Mr. Robert Gray. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we do hope that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration as well. History for today. When we look back to the year 1619, and the House of Burgesses in Virginia was formed, and that was believed to be the first elected American governing body during the English colonial rule. In the year 1792, on this day, 500 Marseillaise men sang France's national anthem, the Marseillaise, for the first time. In the year 1869, the world's first oil tanker, it was called the Charles, departed from the United States for Europe, carrying 7,000 barrels of oil. 1935, on this day, the first Penguin books were published, starting the paperback revolution at that time. That was back in 1935. And in 1937, on this day, the Soviet Politburo issued NKVD order number 00447 during the Great Purge to repress property-owning kulaks and anti-Soviets. And 269,100 of those kulaks and anti-Soviets were arrested, with 76,000 executed. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish has been brought to you with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses Jugozi Lane, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome to our program for today. And we do hope that everybody's having a good one. And good news is that I think we've got our phone lines back up and running. So we will hopefully definitely be able to take in some calls today. First, we want to extend some condolences to the family of Mr. David Samuel. And he was known as Dave by many in some circles, of course, later on, thanks to his show, his TV talk show. He was known by some as the chairman, named after it. And unfortunately, he transitioned to the great beyond. And we certainly want to extend condolences to his family and friends and colleagues. He certainly made a major contribution in terms of his work in media as a journalist. And he also went on, thankfully, as many don't often have the opportunity to do so. He, in fact, did write his autobiography. He wrote a story on his work and his all that he was able to achieve. And so certainly we do want to express our condolences, of course, at this time, and to pay some homage to him in this regard. Also to the family of a very well-known lady by some from the community of Karef in Grosley, that of Julia Mathre. And she was a great activist, a community activist, and was also a stalwart of the community and doing so many different things, inclusive, of course, of in being in part of the Lawas celebrations from Moshi. And unfortunately, we want to indicate that she also passed earlier on today. And so, condolences to her family and all those who knew her very, very well. So, we do want to wish them strength at this time as they continue to move on. Now, something happening today, very interesting enough, a partnership in the area of housing. And this project in particular was one which has been around for quite some time. And I speak to that of a housing development in the Babonneau area, more specifically in a part of Babonneau known as Talvan. And of course, that is situated, within the Foisseau, the greater Foisseau part of Babonneau. And it's one of those projects, I suppose, that has gone through, I think now into perhaps its um, third administration dealing with that particular project. First started off, I think, under the Kenny Anthony administration, and then again into the Alan Shastney administration, and now into the Philip J. Pierre administration. It was being undertaken by Fresh Start, local company here, which of course I think many have heard of, and it appears that it has recommenced. And of course, the idea, of course, of providing land, residential land, really, for home construction is something that is really important for national growth and development. And of course, the whole long and sordid history that we've had with respect to land ownership in St. Lucia, of course, dates back into the colonial period, where effectively land was that real estate mattered in terms of economic output. In particular, in those days, the economic output was that of agriculture to some degree as well, even forestry in the very early times of St. Lucia. Lots of logging was taking place to remove wood for different purposes, for furniture making, for energy, making charcoal and what have you, and for home construction. A lot of that, of course, was exported to Martinique in the very early days of the St. Lucia colony. But then later on, of course, land became very important for the agricultural sector, and they were effectively held in estates, and the estate owners effectively were the what you could say were the plantocracy of the day, and it was very, very much, of course, difficult for people of color, of course, because of the institution of slavery that existed. And so, although we did see some uh, people of color coming out of Martinique, freed people in the early periods trying to own land because it was so difficult to do so in the case of Martinique being an older colony. And of course, that has had set in for a very long time in terms of land ownership. Of course, then came emancipation in 1833, 1834. Then, of course, the period of indentureship for another 4 years. And then uh, some attempts, of course, in terms of land ownership began in terms of persons uh, working on the edges, the margins of these various estates where land may not have been developed or in areas where you didn't have very high demand, and maybe not the best land for agriculture. They tried to uh, have subsistence agriculture in these areas, and later on, eventually were able to actually purchase some of those lands to the point where, in fact, by 1848, there was a fairly large number of these individuals who now owned land and not very large amounts of land, small land holdings. And in fact, the colonial government at that time decided that they wanted to tax it. It, in fact, led to a land revolt, a tax revolt on this whole issue of a land tax being introduced by the colonial government of that day. And of course, land continued to be really essential um, in terms of economic power. And so, of course, even now, as we move into a newer period where what is driving a lot of this interest in property is actually now more driven by tourism, individuals who are looking to own a piece of paradise because these islands in the tropics, surrounded by the sea and with lovely blue water and good temperature year round. They seem to be very exciting, of course, and this is what we've been promoting from since maybe the 1940s around the Caribbean right here. And and so we've gotten to a point where a lot of our land is actually being taken up for purposes of tourism and real estate for expatriates who are looking to maybe retire or maybe have a second home, a vacation home, that sort of thing. So, of course, that impacts the land economy, the value of property, and so we've seen a fairly large and rise in the value of properties. Every decade, it seems to be going up even greater and greater. So when you compare land prices, maybe back in the 1970s, where people were saying that you could get land in Bonte for $1 an acre, a square foot, and you now look at property prices in those very same areas about 50 years on. Well, you're speaking about $30 a square foot for that very same piece of land. So definitely, this appreciation of land has placed a tremendous struggle on the population, and of course, in particular, young people who are now looking to own their own homes. They have now found themselves in a challenging situation, whereas their parents may have been able to purchase land at a relatively affordable rate. The pressures now that are being placed on the land market are in fact making it more difficult for the current generation to be able to access homes. Of course, it is also a matter of supply and demand. The population has increased. When you compare the population of 1970 to the population now, we're talking about a twofold increase. And of course, what people are looking for now has also changed. So, whereas perhaps in the 1970s, you were people were fairly comfortable in a house that may very well have had 5 and 6 people. that has certainly changed. In fact, I just have some data just to give you a sense of household size and how that has changed over the years. And this is coming from some research which was done by a St. Lucian, S. Mooney, back in 2013. And it just looks at household sizes in St. Lucia over the years. Back in 1970, if we use that as an example, uh, a single, well, when you look at one person households represented about 17% of all households in St. Lucia, right? One person households. Today, right, there are, in 2010 rather, I should say, not even today, this is of course based on the census data from 2010, right, over a quarter of households in St. Lucia now are one person households. That's 27.3% of households. You look back in 1970, households with 10 people and above, 8.2% of all households in St. Lucia at that time had 10 plus people living in those homes, right? 8% of those households. Today, that figure is less than 1%. So 0.8% of all households in 2010, in fact, had 10 persons and above. And in fact, so what you've been seeing over the years is that the average household size has in fact been coming down. So back in 1970, the average household size was 4.6, right? And that was a population of about 99,800 people. And today, well, not today, but in 2010, when we had the last census, that 4.6, which is an average household size, that came down to 2.8. So the number of people in a house on average has been falling. What that means, though, is that, of course, you may argue that maybe they're living in smaller houses, perhaps not. And we don't actually have that data, and that would be very useful data as well to look at in terms of the actual physical floor per person, floor space per person that is actually being seen right now. But what we can see by visual inspection, where we're seeing quite a lot of larger and larger properties, larger homes. People are expecting more space for their own comfort. And so that is happening, and we're seeing more space per person in being utilized because you have so many more people who are living on their own. And that's for a lot of different reasons. As the society changes, you'll find that a lot more people will, young people may want to move out and live on their own. That's one aspect of it. But you also see that a lot of seniors still want to have their independence. They want to live on their own as well. So they maintain, although their children have moved out, they also are living on their own. So you're finding much smaller households at that point, which means that the overall demand for houses has increased. Back in 1970, the estimate was that there were about 21,753, right? Roughly 22,000 private households back in 1970. In 2010, for which the most recent census data that we have, that number is nearly three times that amount, right? And we're talking about 58,891, nearly 60,000 households in 2010. And so that means then there is going to be that continued demand and pressure for homes, for houses, as people actually want more space, as they are looking to have their own privacy. They're looking to start. They want to start their own families, or they just want to live on their own, whatever the case may be. And so the availability of households of housing is certainly very important within this regard. Now, of course, the challenge that we've also faced when we speak to this matter is that of job availability and people wanting to actually live close to their place of work, close enough to opportunities for employment. And so that too has led to significant shifts since the 1960s, certainly, and the 1970s. Back in the 1970s, grossly, we were just discussing with the Mr. Bertram Leo just last week about the Grosley reunion, but the Grosley of 1970 is so very much different from the Grosley of today, because you've seen a significant shift in the population as a result of economic opportunities, whether through tourism related activities, hotels and restaurants, and retail shopping, and the golf courses, and whatever the case may be, that has in fact brought people away from the traditional population center of Castries. And of course, even during that period of time, the shift in the economy away from agriculture has meant that we've seen that rural urban drift in the population, resulting in increased demand for housing in the urban northwest corridor of St. Lucia. So that's where the pressure is on tremendously. Not to say that there isn't demand for housing in many other parts of St. Lucia. There is certainly. And some places have their own localized challenges. Soufrière, for instance, because of the very steep topography there, it means that the town of Soufrière is pretty self-contained, it's pretty compact, which is good actually. But it certainly does pose its own challenges in terms of expansion and finding new opportunities for places for persons to live. And so that issue regarding housing certainly is one that is very much tied to land use and economic development, and it certainly has to be a major plank in any economic strategy moving forward. We've gone a little bit overboard here, but we'll of course end our dish of the day at this time so that we can take in our weather report.
This has been the Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lance Road in Castries, Bosses U Grizzly Lakes, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east near 12 miles per hour or 19 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter at times. The weather fair to partly cloudy skies with a few brief showers. The forecast for the Les Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the northern Windward and Leeward Islands. Elsewhere, fair to partly cloudy skies with widely scattered showers. And the tropical weather outlook. A tropical wave associated with an area of disturbed weather located a few hundred miles east of the region will affect mainly the northern Windward and Leeward Islands during the forecast period. Some development of the system is expected during the next 7 days. To the south, a relatively dry atmosphere with light winds is expected during the next 24 hours. And this was a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Hope you're having a good one. Of course, our number to call in it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message in via WhatsApp number that is 724-0008. And we were making mention of today, I think, a open day, which is actually happening as part of this relaunch of the Talvin housing project in the community of Babonneau. Well, in the district of Babonneau, I guess you could say. It's actually in the quarter of Dauphin, which is, of course, in the constituency of Babonneau. And, of course, the demand for housing, as we were speaking, is certainly a major one. And it's actually a problem that a number of countries, even developed countries, are facing right now. It's a huge issue in many European countries, in particular in the United Kingdom. They are effectively facing a bit of a housing crisis. In particular, some may say it's very much localized in the or regionalized, if you like, in the southeast of the United Kingdom, in the Greater London area. Lots of pressure there for housing, and a lot of people have pointed out that the struggles there is also tied to the need for public investment in housing. There was quite a lot of that in the United Kingdom after World War II, perhaps thanks to lots of, well, perhaps the government in power at that time. It was a Labour government. They were very much keen on social housing projects. And there was, of course, perhaps quite a lot of money available through the Marshall Plan and what have you for investment in reconstruction. But there was a significant amount of spend in what were known as council houses, or properties that were developed with the understanding that, of course, they had to be affordable. And in many instances, this was achieved through compactness, and as compared to perhaps the United States and Canada and Australia, where there was lots of available land, the push was, of course, to have very compact housing. And so we were speaking about row housing and townhouses, duplexes, quadplexes, as well as apartment buildings, flats. And so there was quite a lot of investment in during the period of the 50s and 60s to be able to provide housing stock for a growing population. A tremendous amount of that has not happened, unfortunately, since perhaps the rise of the Thatcher years and a number of conservative governments who have perhaps placed a lot more emphasis on getting private sector investment in housing. And yes, certainly there's an important part to play with the private sector providing housing, perhaps for middle income households, certainly. But for those persons who have are finding it challenging to be able to find affordable housing, that's a big issue. That's a big deal. And so the need for affordable housing or social housing, as it's sometimes may be called, is a major necessity at this time in the United Kingdom, but not just there. In Ireland, they're having their own challenges in that regard too, and of course also right here in Saint Lucia, we can look at our affordable housing stock, and perhaps we can say that that housing stock is pretty dated, pretty old as well. I mean, you can think back to the post 1948 fire. We got our share of that style of housing as well, with the introduction of the Colonial Development Corporation (CDC) buildings in the heart of Castries, and that at the time I think provided somewhere around 216 or so units in the heart of the city. And then later on, we saw also in the Leclerc area and a few other areas where you have found some of those types of housing made available. Let's take a call at this time as we're receiving some already. Good afternoon. Looks like we may have lost that call. But of course, the number is 4523046. And then in the 1990s, the early 1990s, the investment in the Darling Road apartment buildings, that added, I think, another roughly maybe 150, 160 or so units in the city center. Now, of course, that's another major issue to be discussed. Uh, you could have housing in certain places, but that housing may still not be attractive to individuals who are looking to have it in a particular area. They want to actually be sometimes close to their place of work or their economic activity. And so quite often there is this belief, well, you could provide a house, and wherever that house may be, um, it's gonna help that individual. But if there aren't the supporting amenities, if there are not the job opportunities and the commercial activity to go along with that investment, it becomes quite often, well, a very isolated existence. And we've seen, so this approach of suburbanization, for instance, which is the American model of doing things, doesn't often work in many housing solutions that may be necessary right here. Let's take a call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon. Hello? Hello, caller?
Hello?
Hi, yes, caller. We're barely hearing you.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
I need to say something. How is that? Yesterday at the Olympics, commentator made a comment which they said was sexist, and he was banned. He was banned from even commentating at the rest of the Olympic Games.
Oh, okay.
And they say after the Australian team won the 4x1 in the swimming the pool.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay, well, women already, they hang around and they put in up their makeup. So the thing was that was a sexist remark, and so he was asked to be removed, so he's no longer going to be commentating.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing, but yet in St. should be taken serious, and it's allowed to pass. Just I see this last Sunday that passed, just happened to be just taking in some of what was going on television, and I had champions saying about taking out the government by any means necessary, because they cannot take it anymore. It's not because they want the power, but because people are suffering on the lips of everything. And you're going to tell people that is inciting all kinds of things. Just when you're going to say, get them out by any means necessary in order for you to come back. What message are you sending? And the inciting to committing violence and those kind of things.
Well, yeah, that's a very bold statement to be making, and I think you could very well take that to mean, by any means necessary. Sounds very ominous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not necessarily saying specifically what any means necessary means, but you can perhaps draw
If he
some
actually by
inferences
any
there.
means legal means, but he didn't say by any legal, he said by any means. Any
Hmm.
means I can just for you take over, I just can just come in and just use guns, whatever I have, because if you want, I don't want you. And some of the statements they are making, there's no data or anything to show that when you're going to say every person in St. Lucia is crying out because they're suffering, they've been victimized, all sorts of, it's just like these statements that has been flown out so freely. Come on, how can people do these things? And another stupid thing he said, another statement, I think some people really need to emancipate their minds out of slavery. He's saying that same Sunday coming from work, a guy was watching him for the longest while. Then the guy came up to him and tell him, I've been listening to you. I've been listening to you. But I just want to tell you, thanks, Mr. Saturday, because I'm a fisherman. I was out on the sea. We were out on the sea and we couldn't find our way or anything and we were lost. And thanks to Mr. Saturday, he came and saved us. And I was wondering, was that a Jesus moment? Did he walk on water?
Well, I'm not sure what he's referring to, caller. Maybe there was a boat. Maybe they were on the water or something.
Yeah, he
Maybe.
said the man came to save him. And he said, well, that is Mr. Sassney for you. I was just trying to save even a man that was lost at sea.
Well, you never know, caller. I don't know the particulars, and I don't know what he's referring to. But I'm just saying maybe it was that they were on a boat and he happened to be passing by and was able to assist this gentleman. I don't know the particulars.
Let me
That's
tell you,
an interesting story.
That's just champagne making up a Jesus story there.
We don't know, caller.
That's just champagne making up a Jesus story there for the gentleman. Because you have to push the gentleman by any means necessary to make him look good. And then you listen to some of this people say, I can understand people, but when you're going to go out, the kind of things you're going to say. Come on, just to push. You're going to say everybody. When you say, you can't mislead people like that. You can't just say what you want because you feel you have the right to say you want. Another thing, and the thing that people listen, because here is the former prime minister saying, okay, that they're building the how they calling that thing, the Hall of Justice. But we're going to build the Hall of Justice. We 60,000 for the Hall of Justice and 30 for the police.
60 million?
60 million for the and 30 for the police station. But then I listened to the gentleman in 2021 before election, and they asked when will since the jail has been broken down, when will this all of this start? He said, sometime later in the year. Where are you going to get the money from? NIC. How much? I'm going to try to get by the end of the day 99 million from NIC. But on Sunday you are saying 60 million and 30 for the thing. But he said it's NIC that would have lent them that money. And then NIPRO They would, whatever it is, NIPRO, but then, and I should be getting an interest for the, for like the elderly people, the pensioners, and all of those things, the interest on what,
Right, so it'd be
what
like
they would,
a bolt arrangement, like what
yes, would
exists with other
say,
buildings.
and you had the statement. Then some time ago I was listening on where they have their Thursday program, and then I heard, and then Nancy said, we had the money in already for the whole of justice. It was 81 million. So come on, whenever each time a different um, ma- amount of money is being said, how can you take? I can take it with because nobody's
I think
giving.
81 million was the figure that we had been given for the new. It was for the St. Jude Hospital, I think. Remember this figure, 81 million,
But you said that
30
81
million
million was
US.
for the Hall of Justice because on that occasion, Mr. What's his name, the engineer, John Peters, he had to call and it went back and forth because a lot of what he was saying at the time, he had to take his time out and call and ask to give him time to explain everything. And then it gets to the point she even tell the man, she wanted to stop the man, and that they had to tell her, no, you cannot. She says her show. But the man wouldn't take it for that because the man said when it comes to his reputation and things, so he had to call and explain. So when you just branding about different prices and everything, how can people take you serious?
Hmm.
Because all of these things, if people are paying attention and they're listening and these things that are being said, these things are supposed to be taken seriously. Because you cannot be just saying things just because you feel it's okay to say it. You're supposed to have facts and things to show
Well,
what you're.
yeah, and let's face it, I mean, with projects, quite often the initial estimate that we are provided
Uh-huh.
it perhaps does not represent the final cost
Yeah,
of the project. And we've seen this so many times. If we are to think back, caller, to the first estimate that we were ever given for St. Jude Hospital,
yeah,
we could only laugh,
yeah,
right? I mean, we were told somehow it was going to be done for $2 million US.
yeah,
Yeah, that was what was stated in a budget statement here in our country.
yeah,
I mean, we get figures quite often, and we do know that, of course, the nature of projects will mean, especially if there are delays in the projects, prices will go up, and you're going to get sometimes more work to be done than even what was known, and so you end up with having variations to the price.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, starting prices give us a sense, but sometimes what we know is that, especially when you get bidding, sometimes we know some people underbid. They'll try to bring down the rates. They try to do all sorts of things, and that is part of the risk of in project implementation. So what we certainly want to know is that we're getting value for money,
Yes, value for money.
and that what is being done is what was going to serve the country best
Mm-hmm.
in the long run. That's what I think is very important at this point. But I guess a lot of politicians, it's always about the dollar signs. That's
Yeah,
what they believe there is going to be some kind of sensationalism
yeah,
regarding prices. And I mean, so we really can't say. What we should be comparing is, okay, are we saying that the two buildings are the same square footage, the same floor space, or are they different sizes? I mean, there are a lot of different issues
yeah.
that may be at play in terms of the overall pricing.
It don't matter, but I think sometimes these people, politicians, and then they would be taken very, very careful, be recorded, and always play back to remind them of them. Because sometimes the crap and nonsense that comes out, and then when you fact check sometimes, and especially when you pay attention to everything that is being said, you listen attentively, and you hear the crap and nonsense coming from. And these
Well,
things are allowed to be passed. These things are allowed to pass. People let things. As I said, the simple little thing the gentleman said at the Olympics is taken to task for a simple thing, which I felt was nothing.
well,
Nothing
you may think
compared.
it's nothing, but then I guess in a world when you have hundreds of millions of people watching, including women who may feel offended that to suggest that somehow they are different from men in in certain respects, then you may get some people who will take offense.
Yeah, but it's a fact. It's a fact that
It,
women after
we've seen it. We've seen a lot of issues in terms of offenses in the Olympics. I mean, there was one with the Koreans. The South Korea was wrongly announced as North Korea during the Olympic opening ceremony, and that caused a bit.
mistakes.
Then you also had a major issue in terms of what was seen as an affront to Christianity, where there was these individuals who were, well, people perceived them to be portraying an image of a painting of the Last Supper, Jesus and his apostles, his disciples, and the people who were depicting them happened to be drag queens, and they people took offense, and of course I think even the French bishops conference came out, and an apology was actually offered, I understand, in that regard. Although some people were saying that it was actually not what was meant to be depicted, but sometimes that is the nature of how those things go. You've got to be so very careful in terms of because in putting out something, you need to figure out, is somebody going to take this the wrong way? Could it be interpreted in a different way, which may lead to potential controversy? A lot of these things have to be carefully looked at when you're dealing with.
And yeah, the right intention, we don't say anything if we had no care or thought or concern or consideration as to what the comments and things we say.
Well,
yeah,
that's unfortunate as well. Certainly.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for that contribution, caller. Have a good one. All right. Sorry about the bit of a feedback there, but we do hope that we can seem to get that going in due course. But of course, we have been having a conversation about housing and the importance of housing here in St. Lucia, and the important role that the state has in terms of providing affordable housing, and not just any kind of housing, but housing in the right areas, the right kind of amenities, which in fact can lead to positive social gains in the long run for many, many people, many families. But we'll continue that conversation hopefully tomorrow at another of the programs of the Lunchroom. We hope you can join us for that. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.